So, good morning, Dr. Rose. How are you today?
Oh, good morning, Professor Gora. I am excited because I'm always excited as a returning teacher in August because we still have some time, but we're in the planning, we're projecting forward, we're in launch mode, and particularly with our new transformation theme and with the concept of taking charge, we and the students, we the teachers, we the students. This is an exciting time. So I'm excited, I'm anticipating, I'm in planning, and I'm also anticipating the students joining us in this new transformation school year ahead.
I'm enjoying your energy. So, let me share our notes for today. There we go. Um, yeah, and as you can see, this is number five of our continuing coffee clutch conversations. This one, I threw the tag in there, oral history, because teaching with oral history and teaching about oral history is one of your great passions, Rose, one that I admire. And so I'm putting the notes together. I could see that we've got some great content to cover, you and I. First, let me just do some quick, sorry, I just knocked the computer. There's no earthquake here. Okay, so let me do some quick intros. My name is Professor Mark Gura. I teach online graduate level education students for Touro University. They are all in-service teachers, most of them in service in the New York City public schools, which is where you and I, Dr. Rose, did our careers. I was a classroom teacher primarily in Harlem for about 2 decades, and then I moved to the Central District where I became a professional development uh, expert. I'll use the term expert. They thought I was an expert. I was actually learning on the job every day, and a curriculum writer. And eventually, I was put in charge of some city-wide programs, the instructional technology, STEAM, and other programs. And you, Dr. Rose, in many ways very similar, always inner city, New York City. You started out as a school librarian. You became one of the, I'll say it, one of the best English language arts and social studies teachers the city has seen in decades and decades. And you became a writer, education writer as well, and you are a star in, not just in my opinion, but in the system's opinion, in creating curriculum, which really brings us to what we're doing today. And I'll give you a few seconds to correct or add as I get our notes view.
Okay, thank you, Professor Gora. I just want to add, just to validate me, although I'm licensed in both ELA and social studies, and our system, at least in New York City, tends to classify you according to you're an English teacher, you're a social studies teacher, you're a general grade teacher. I have always not seen silos in education, as you said in one of your videos, Professor Gora. I see it as we're teaching everything. And social studies in particular, I pushed myself as an English language arts teacher into it. I've worked with the Rendell Center for Civics Education in Philly, LEAP Center nationally and in Pennsylvania, also with Freedom Foundation. I've written curricula for them, with Cradle, the Center for Research and Development of Law-Related Education, and lots else. And I've done that because I passionate as a teacher, not just one content, as a teacher, developing literate, involved, engaged citizens, which should take us right to our theme.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate this cross subject teaching and the way I've observed you do it and design it. It's not juggling separate balls in the air. Each of the elements, the social studies, the language, and more kind of they support one another, and you end up with something that's not just greater than the sum of its wholes. You end up with something that's great. So, this video will be presented as transforming instruction with oral history activities. We're going to talk about oral history, and we're going to talk about a couple of great activities. And yes, there are free resources to be had, and we're going to talk all about that. First, I want to do a little contextualizing. Uh, This is just the way I think, and so I created this graphic here because not only us, but the field is focused now very much on transforming instruction. And so, I know that my in-service teachers, most of whom have taught for 3 or 4 years, this is probably a new thing to them. I don't even know that they understand what needs to be transformed. As newbies, teachers come in and kind of accept what's handed off to them. Though you and I have, and I neglected to throw this little tagline out, but I like to say it, between the two of us, we have direct classroom experience of over a century. That's combined, not either one individually. So we know that there's an awful lot that needs to be transformed and changed. And so, those of us who deliver the traditional model end up with these students here, struggling to politely stay awake for you. Those who move to the progressive model, and over the weeks and months, Dr. Rose, we will keep defining and redefining that. The progressive model produces awake, alive, enthusiastic, engaged students. And so under traditional, I put it's school centered. It's one size fits all. That's the way school was when we went to school. And under progressive, I see that we're shifting to student centered, individualized, personalized. And on the traditional side of things, the model is the student must comply with a rigid curriculum and instruction. On the progressive side, the curriculum and instruction are flexible to fit the student's learning needs. On the traditional side, students answer set questions, and on the progressive side, there's student voice and choice. So let me just read this ever so briefly, because what we're after is disrupting this model that I just presented in that graphic. We're after a disruptive, transformative learning experience for the students. Instructional activities that break with that traditional model and uh, and that as a consequence grab the student's attention and engage the student, keeps them engaged, even inspired, and ultimately they begin to learn how exciting learning is and direct themselves. All of that to say that those are some great words, and we've certainly heard them over and over again. And what's going to be important now is to connect those words to a couple of models. What does that look like in the classroom? which brings us to oral history. And one of the foci, the focuses of that would be learning about 9/11 through oral history. So you have, among many oral history based activities, you have one you've done, which is called 9/11 Commemoration Stories, Generation to Generation Oral History. And you've implemented this with a large number of teachers at your school, Ditmas Middle School in Brooklyn, and we're actually going to show people the student product in a few minutes. But why don't you start off by why? Why are we doing this activity?
Okay, let me start off. Number one, this is free. This is something you hopefully you can do. And not only some of you listening may be saying, oh, history. Well, I don't teach history. I don't like it. I'm not interested in current events. Figure this is not for me, or all right, I'll listen because maybe I should, but not interested. This is not just about current events, and it's not just about history. This is a technique, a tool. It is free. So what do you do? How do we make this happen? You start with one, connecting, connecting to the student. Notice the model that went before. We're taking the script, the school, and we're taking it to the student. And our student, here we're saying to the student, the first questions in any oral history, we look at the student, not at us, is, do you think it is important that to know about something that happened before you were born, before you existed, other than maybe you're required to answer a question about it on a test? Do you as a person, do you as a becoming the person you are, think it's important to know about the past, that before you existed? Is it important? And number two, if so, if so, what can you do with that knowledge? Just pass a test, answer some fill-in question or option choice, or is there something that we should be doing with it? And you also tell the student, because this is student-centered, that the truth is there is no correct answer. Obviously, I, as a social studies teacher, and before that as a person connected whose mother ran around with posters and signs and signed petitions, I have one answer in my heart. But there are many adults in our current society, and many in my own family, whose answer is no. I don't think it's important to know that. So you begin with the discussion. You center it to the student, number one, and what the student thinks before, and you're going to return to that. Number two, you get to the event itself. Students today, kids who are from, and I would probably not do this any earlier than the fifth or fourth grade, but a kid who's in the fourth or fifth grade, you say to them, 9/11. Any you heard of that? What happened then? And we let them, whatever content it is, we let them share openly. And let them share means not that you get one answer. Yes, 9/11, 2001. My father told me because he was so and so over there, or my parent was a firefighter, first responder. No, that's not. You don't just wait for one answer. You wait and you give it count to 5 or 6 in your head, and you wait for 4 or 5 answers. And in fact, if you're going to be running a student-centered class, you step back and you have a discussion, even if it's, no, I don't care about it. I'm only concerned with things that happened when I was born. No, I don't know anything about it. Yeah, I know something happened. And let the kids, child centered. So that's how you start it. Then oral history. Oral history, we're talking, we're having a conversation. And that's not only important for English so that they can have a conversation and write a paragraph. It's not only important for social studies. So we have a heading and we have details supporting it. It's important in real life to have a conversation, to listen, which sometimes I have trouble with, to listen to others, to pick up on what others say. So if a child says something like, I don't care what happened, I only care about my own family, etc. You have the child repeat that, and then you look at the other children and you say, well, how do you react to that? Does anybody agree differently? Listen, listen. Then step two of it. So we've had introduction, and you put up what they say, whatever it is, with their name on an experiential chart. You have one of them recorded, even better on an experiential chart or on the smartboard or whatever, because they're going to return to that, because that's what they come into this thinking. They may think it's important, they may not. And in fact, in the end product for this, which we have pages of featured notes, one of the kids says at the beginning, I thought this was a waste of time. I didn't even, one of the kids who became a leader. And then I realized, I thought back. Then you tell them they're going to go ask somebody who did experience this. If it happened in, and this sad to say, I have to do a math thing. If it happened in 2001 and now it's 2000, this year 25, 24 years ago, well, who was alive? Oh, gee, my parent, my older sibling, my aunt so and so, somebody in another country, which is really fabulous, somebody who's living in Mexico, Honduras, Dominican, Uzbek, wherever, another country. They were alive. What did they experienced it? And now I always say to them, and what have you experienced that you are going to be able to be interviewed about? And the children, and they look at me because they don't think they've experienced any major history event. And then I look at them and I say, well, do you remember when there was no school and we had to stay? The pandemic. It'll be oral history. So then they have to generate 3 questions to ask this adult. That can't just be what's 9/11, because then the adult is going to give an answer. 9/11 was September 11, 2001. But they have to ask, well, what should I ask? Well, maybe, where were you? How did, and they have to generate. You don't give them 3 scripted, taking your model, Professor Gora. We're not doing the traditional, and here are the 3 questions you will all take home and ask an adult or ask a family member, ask the staff member in our school. No, they come up with questions, and they might be more than 3. And then they're going to do at least 3, but they come up, we write them down, we have a record, we can be videoing that record, we can be putting it on the smartboard, have a Word doc to share back, because we're going to return when they come home. Then they take their 3 questions and oral history. They have a conversation. Now, God forbid if a child, which is possible in a Title I in a city school, and it could even be possible anywhere, if a child has a deceased family member or is living with a guardian or is living, God forbid, in a homeless shelter or whatever, the child may not have an adult to ask. But in the school, we've got, after all, everybody in the school is pretty much 30 or over. And by the way, some kids who were in preschool actually remembered it as well. I found that out on other histories. A kid who was only 5 or 6 had some memory of images on television and people crying. But generally, but say over 30, they go home, they're going to ask these questions. And if they don't have a person, then you bring in, but you don't say it's a person because you might have no persons. You say, oh, and to help us learn how to be oral historians, here's a staff person who's going to come in here and help us. And anybody will come in and you listen. And they have to then write down as they're listening. They can either record it, right? Because when we do transformation, when we go from the traditional to the new, to this transformed curriculum, when we go that way, when we shift, we can record it, write it down, which is what I would have had to do as a child, or we can draw, make an illustration. We can take our cell phones and film it and then listen back. And we have to come back with something to share with the class that shows I interviewed so and so, so and so. They were in Mexico City. They remember hearing it came over the news, this and this. Where were they have, and my person's name is so and so, and this person was this age. But they have to write, record, film, and then they have to say how they felt. Well, gee, I was surprised to hear that my relative who was living in Mexico City or in the Dominican Republic on their lemon farm was upset to hear this and actually stopped the day. Or my relative in Japan, which actually happened, tells me that they were very alarmed and things had happened in the subway there like that. And oh, da, da, da. So they have to come back and then they have to say, reflect. Because remember, transforming education, when we go to student centered, when we empower the students, so we've nurtured them by talking about their culture, the three components of transforming education. We've nurtured, we've cultivated them. Then we guided them by having them develop the questions, not script. Students centered them, and then we empowered them because they got to come back with something. They can't just say, yeah, I sat down and my relative hugged me and we talked, and they have to come back with some facts, and then they have to reflect agency. Thank you. So it goes, all three of these things have been done. And teachers, I will say something else. It doesn't explicitly say this in either Professor Gora's model, beautiful graphic at the beginning, or in this. But teachers, you're empowered, you're nurtured because you're sharing your thing. Generally, you would tell the kids where you were, and I tell a story. And I found out from this, by the way, that some of my fellow teachers, it was their first day teaching, and one person was in San Francisco, and she had moved away to Brooklyn and was never coming back. And when this happened, within 2 months, she left San Francisco, turned to Brooklyn because she felt that she hadn't been in her city when it was attacked, and she stayed. So you nurture, you find out things, you guide the students their own questions, but then also when they come back with agency, you step back. You find out things. So I'm a white Jewish Caucasian lady, and I never thought of how this affected somebody who was a Muslim. And this is the back cover of the book, living here in New York City, driving, let's say, a livery cab, which is a type of car service in New York City, but not the regular yellow cab. And that person suddenly became the target of hate. You're the one who did 9/11. You driving my cab. Oh my God. What are you doing here? Why are you here? So now I will end the emotion, but the excitement of you learning each year, this is what this system transforming, this idea, this shift, this is going to be exciting for you. And I am naturally, whatever we might want to call it, expand. But teachers, this is going to make you kind of come to school. It's going to fill your eyes with tears, and you're going to know that this is real and it's not just social studies. All right, Dr. Professor.
Well, one of the things I love about this particular project, and again, you've done many other oral history based projects, but oftentimes when teachers implement what I call packaged curriculum, whether it be hard copy from a book or online. Even though there's personalization, data-driven personalization, the experience is pretty much the same from class to class. This I can see, the activity becomes a vessel for the unique personalities and interests of those involved. As you point out, the teacher and the student, and then the students are interviewing adults and uh, so it's a different mix, and we're going to show the product and you'll talk about how many classes weighed in on this particular magazine. I'll call it a magazine as the product, but it would
Okay, but
be,
it was all okay. So there was a magazine product. I just want to say one thing. You can do an oral history on anything coming up in the curricula. For instance, you're a science teacher, and now we have warnings when you can go out, whether you're a child with asthma or you're an adult over a certain age, got a breathing condition. Where I'm seated right now, there was a wildfire in my own neighborhood. Isham Park was on wildfire, which I didn't know till I came back in my apartment and noticed. I thought something was burning out. So you can ask the kids as well. You're teaching atmospheric conditions and weather warnings and health. You can ask them to ask their parents about where they lived and when they experienced wildfire smoke, air quality, and believe, of course, that was part of 9/11. You can do math. I cost $120 now to serve for three classes, one with two slices of pizza each. When I was a kid in Brooklyn, it might have cost, pizza might have been well under $1, and you might have been, so prices, different countries, currencies. So you can do math, you can do science, any subject, you can have them ask their parents about the reality and do a brief or a technology. We've had wonderful in the tech field about we're working now with our laptops and we're talking and all of that. We've taught with kids brought in rotary phones, kids brought in, one kid brought in a walkie-talkie from some business at some particular time. They brought in old models of cell phones. They brought in, one brought a picture of some huge model of some old type, and one brought cards. So you can do oral history and it connects. It's good for you in your topic because it connects the kids to the parent to reality. And 9/11, the only reason we chose this as a focus, it's coming up, of course, but 9/11 is something every child has some adult in their family or school who experienced sense that they were alive and the news stopped wherever they were. And I found out in countries around the world, and people went, wow. And they looked at those buildings, oh, and they looked at attack on America, oh, and there was a visceral, emotional, global reaction because that's the way our lives are today. Whether, political systems acknowledge or not, we are, because of technology, and our hearts and souls as persons are globally connected. And so this is a sure win. Professor Gura mentioned new teachers. New teachers need sure wins, and new teachers, I guess I was one, and I come every year to school, and those people, those new staff members need to see that they're doing something and it works, and they need to feel that they're affecting. And so this is going to work. Every kid is going to have someone to talk to, and God forbid not, you have people to come in as guests to talk, and every kid is going to learn. I am part of history. I am reacting, I'm reflecting. Maybe I come out of this, I'm going to be honest. Maybe I come out of this and I still don't care. I still feel that
You
only
know what?
things that concern
I,
my
I,
life are important.
I want to respond to that because
Okay.
I mean, I could have shoved so many other progressive education descriptors in that little graphic, but one that we need to talk about is authentic learning. And so I simply describe authentic learning as doing real things in the real world. And so it doesn't get much more real than this. And one of the great things is if you're sending kids out to interview adults or other kids about what 9/11 was like for them, one of the things you're going to get as a seventh grader interviewer is a lot of excitement from your interviewee. Let me just pause this for a second. Rose, Rose. Okay, you're back, huh? So I
Okay,
paused
yeah.
the video, and what I was saying was that one of the wonderful things about this is if you're a kid and you go out and interview people, adults or other kids, you're going to get a reaction. You know, you're not going to get yawns and crickets. You're going to see that when you do something real in the real world, it becomes real fun. Well, whatever. I'm going to resume now, and you pick up that thread briefly.
Okay. All right. So you're saying authentic learning. Yes, it becomes engaging. I don't know if we can use the word fun. The kids like empowering. I'd rather say than fun. It's empowering. This book, which we're showing, the first page of it, the intro, interestingly, the forward is by the kids. The forward is by the kids. And everything. I didn't put the kids decided on the format and the kids explain it. My concept, my lesson goes after what the kids say. And the kids became, I don't know that I'd use the word fun, but I would use the word engaged, empowered, agency. They owned this project. And in owning it, they transformed it beyond what even my best expectations were. And the selling point for oral history is that when we take on transformation, when we take away the script, when we venture into this open road with possibilities with students, we don't know what it's going to be, and that's exciting. An adventure is exciting and engaging, and sometimes it's not joyous. It might be emotional. It might make us realize that we're in a dangerous world, and we're in a world that requires resilience, requires problem solving, requires building those towers. The children, when the children watched, let's continue with the note up so that they see it. When the children, let's scroll these notes,
I'm
the
scrolling,
pages of
Rose,
the thing. when
but
Thank you. When the children watch the videos, part of this I also showed quickly the videos. Some of the kids asked me if that was a film. They mistook the footage because of the way media is. They said, "Oh, it was a film," and they noticed we
I
didn't
mean
see it. They
special
noticed people.
effects.
Right. They noticed people jumping from the building things. That's why I said it really should be fifth grade over. And they said, "Oh, special effects." And I said, "No, this really happened." So the children, their sense of history and reality has been shaped by the media, and they don't know we need to guide them second step of transforming so that they see the difference between this is real and this URL says it, and here this is real footage, and then their parent oral history, the adult who they're talking with, not for assignment, but they talk with an adult. When I was a child, now these things, okay, so here we have the beautiful this is done by children. I had no idea about the feelings, because after all, I'm not a Muslim. I had no idea about how my children, many in this Title I, Kensington, Brooklyn neighborhood, New York City has many, are Muslims, and they dress like Muslims, or if they don't, their parents do. And their parents during this tragedy were subject, their law-abiding parents with jobs and working for the city and good citizens were subject to, it's you did this to us. And here we have the images. And in fact, that became the back and front cover of the thing that pervasively, and in fact, one parent actually called the school and said that we needed to cover that perspective in the unit. And I ran into the room and took a photo showing that I was ready, the kids were ready, bringing that in, and we were covering it. I also want to say that this project, now here is a class that decided to do a poster. It wasn't only that we published this book. Yes, I'm holding the book here. I had 100 poster boards, and the children, they did research on it. Then they did the poster, which was not only an artful, well, Miss Xavier and I are not artists, nor the other teachers, but the children rendered how it affected them emotionally in terms of graphics. And they worked three at a side, and as you can see, they researched and downloaded and printed out images. They were and they were all different. Again, not a script. One of the worst things I've ever seen in a school, although it thought it was good, was to walk into a school for a walkthrough and see a bulletin board where they had given the children templates, a traditional school, Dr. Gora, Professor Gora, which was rated well. They had given the children a template, and every kid filled out the template with the same drawing and the same sentence. And it looked pretty good. I mean, it was nicely colored. Every one of these were different. So it was an artistic agency. And then we curated it, and we also had, this one was done, half of our school was still remote during 2021 when we prepared this spring 2021. So half was done with kids at home and done remotely. Half were kids coming in bits to the school live. And so immediately the were networking. They immediately had a community facilitated, of course, by technology to share this, and it went up. And in the school, it was curated on the walls, and we walked through it, and our principals were behind us. They were behind us, and they gave oral histories to classes, and they were available for kids to
You know
come
what?
in and
That's
interview.
brilliant because if you're worrying about getting permission from one of the supervisors, administrator, invite them in to be interviewed. Enroll them that way. I want to point out, because we're going to wrap this up over the next 10 minutes or so, Dr. Rose. I want to point out, number
Yes.
one, remind people that this school, your school, Ditmas, is a regular neighborhood public school, and you serve whoever lives in the neighborhood, whoever comes.
Yes, and the neighborhood is very mixed. It is a neighborhood with, as I said, Uzbek, Pakistani, Latino, African American. Most and many are immigrants. 17% are English language learners, now called MFL, modern language learners, but it means it's got lots of immigrants. And by the way, this helped them cultivate and nurture who they were, because we treasured. We heard about somebody in Japan. We heard about a parent. We even had video of a parent in Honduras. We had some kids took their call
Okay.
and we had translations. It was very exciting. And we did the same thing with the Ukrainian war. We asked our administrators how they felt when that war started. Would they support us? We explained the benefits of this, engaging. But this was before transformation, 2 or 3 years ago. We explained we'd be cultivating the students, we'd be guiding them, and when we got our T-shirt with designs made by the students that day, Ukraine Solidarity Day, our principals put them all on, the principals, and they helped decorate the hallway. And they were thrilled too. So I want to give a shout out to Maria Elena Santiago, Levine McIntosh, Michelle Butrago, and Beatrice Bortle, our principals, all behind us.
Okay, so before I forget, I want to point out, because people will be wondering about this, your school has a policy of getting permissions from parents for kids to be for the kids persona to be in the product. But
Oh, yes, we have
well,
two
hold on
permissions,
a second.
public.
Before I
Yeah.
forget, not everyone needs to do that. You can produce a student magazine like this without the real names, without the kids' photographs, but with the kids' work. So, what did you want to add to that before we move on to the rest of the resources?
Right, but I also want to add, I taught them through the oral history, and oral history, oh, it's not just for, okay, so she did a project and maybe I can do it for some other content. Oral history is also soft skills, as I said, learning to converse, learning to listen to somebody who tells you about their past, and learning to value your parent or adult because, gee, they've experienced life and maybe you could learn. You can hear something about life, but history is skills you can use as an adult. If you're running a business, how do you interview somebody? If you're doing a market survey, how do you find out what the customer really likes or needs? If you're working in government and somebody listening to the person, listening, writing, document, and the kids have to get the approval of the subject after they create it. I want to see in writing that the subject said, yes, this quote from me is right, allowing this. And some of our subjects, by the way, did not allow their full name for whatever reason, or they wanted their age or they didn't want their age. So the kids learn. So there's a lot of real skills too that work in many, multiple. You don't have to be an English teacher or a historian to need to know how to interview, converse, document, record, film, and reflect. Okay, let's show
Okay,
the
so
resources.
so I want to mention that the URL underneath the final photo there, we will be providing that URL and the URLs for all of the resources we're going to cover in 5 minutes, and you'll find all of that under in the notes under the video. Okay, so quick look at
Okay,
page
so
one.
you don't have to. Let me do this quickly. You've heard this discussion, and let's say, wow, okay, it sounds great, but it doesn't sound like something you could do, or it's going to take me forever, or gee, I really don't know, but she said do this and do that, but I can't absorb it. You can go back. Uh, Thanks to the Pennsylvania Council for Social Studies and my dear friend David Travaskis, I have a set of pages which social studies people now are dying to provide you with pages of lessons and the step-by-step lessons on how to do all of this. And so you just go to that site, and here are all these lessons and their topics, and it's aligned to all the curricula foci, and we even have contests ready where you and your students can be recognized and their pictures can go up there so you can really empower them and give them agency. And isn't it nice for a kid to have a URL right now when they're in fifth to 12th grade? Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, I don't think
I
I
am
don't
very lucky.
Rose,
Let's see.
I don't think we really need to discuss this much, but just
Uh,
you can just identify what this is and say this is provided as well, because we've got a bunch more to get to.
okay, all right.
So this is an article you wrote about doing the activity we just discussed.
Yes, correct,
Okay, and it's
correct.
the article in full is available there, but I wanted to make sure we got to this. So what do we have
Okay,
here?
so
We have
these
actually two of them.
there's actually an organization that I myself didn't know that there's an oral history association, a group of individuals who've come together and given you all kinds of lessons in multi-content to begin to using oral history and their resources for different content, different curricular themes, and how you can use it yourself. So that's free access. You can go there. EduCitement has done a wonderful in-depth guide so that this gives you not only a guide to all different content, it gives you media to show with the different content, it gives you extended lesson plans. This is like if you want a whole textbook, look up the topic you want to teach. They probably have a guide to it, they have different levels, different grade levels. So this is just absolutely, you want to get started and you want to get a sense of where you're going and maybe even borrow some of that and throw it into the lesson plans that you create. So this is, and it's a very esteemed site. Now, underneath that, okay, so let's continue along. Over here, the hidden gem, there York City, there's City Law run by Steve Zeitlin, and this is a nonprofit art and folklore organization. Folklore is the stories our parents tell us, which may not be based in truth, but they're like little fairy tales or things about culture, little superstitions of culture or stories of what happened. And Steve Zeitlin has arts projects there for free. He has lesson plans for free. And his resource, you can contact him no matter where you live, and he's willing to help you and support you with curriculum, with resources, and with his guidance. And this was a video where they interviewed him. This is adorable. I wrote the animation. I found this when I was going through. This is somebody, well, you can see what it is. And it's a nice way, maybe even to introduce it to children. What the heck is oral history? But sometimes you can ask them what they think it is. You'll get some strange ideas, but it goes way back. Oral history, just like transforming education, didn't begin 3 years, 16 years, or 10 years ago. It just was named, and it was named by a guy. Let's go to the next one. Studs Terkel. When I was a child, go up. When I was a child, I interviewed my Aunt Sophie with a marble notebook looking exactly similar to this thing now. I interviewed her. I was 8 years old, and Aunt Sophie was folding wax paper, and she told me I said stories about when she worked in a sweatshop in the 1920s and how she came over on the boat from Przemysl, Poland. Um, and I said, Aunt Sophie, I will make you famous. And I wrote down her story. I didn't know it. When I went to graduate school, when I was over 30, I found out this guy, Studs Terkel, who was a historian, he was a radio show anchor, he was kind of a personality. He started oral history, or the term for it, and wrote many great books. And you can actually hear his voice, thank you, technology, on this site. You can hear good old Studs. But oral history existed long before him, but he sort of named it. So you do, and the kids will you ask them his real name was, I think, Lionel something, but he used Lewis was his real name, but he used studs because it was related to some cowboy tradition. So that's one. Then I found out that the Asia Society, which of course wants to document the history of people in internment camps and the way Asian Americans were treated, particularly during World War II, and the way they've been treated, COVID and other things, they have their own oral history resources and lesson plans as well. And so you can use these. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I would say, once you do this, teachers, any topic, and let's stand back. Teaching, transformative teaching, let maybe end with this. Transformative teaching is stepping back to welcome the students in, stepping back to cultivate students, to guide them, and then empowering with agency, hearing their voices yourself. That's what oral history is too. Hear, listen to what you hear and be informed, enabled, empowered, impassioned by it. And so here we see the typical oral history, but it's not just the sitting. It's imagine the conversation between this person who's the subject and that person's the child, and transmitting knowledge, adventure, life, resilience, and hope. And oral history also suggests that the person sharing it with you survived. They were resilient. Aunt Sophie was a seamstress and she lived in this apartment on middle income, never had any new dresses, but her three sons went to college and they ran successful businesses. And I'm the second generation daughter of a first generation American who went on to be a teacher and community leader. And Aunt Sophie was a seamstress and an immigrant. So it's also oral history is I survived, I was resilient. And we invite you to transform, inform, go from the script to the story, go from the standard, from the teacher model to allowing, engaging with the student, and then sitting back and together being empowered on a new open road we don't awards are, but it's an adventure and it makes you want to come to school and take this school year and launch forward. And ironically, in doing so, you'll be using a format from generation to generation, but you'll be poising and targeted it to help this generation, which certainly needs it, to have hope, resilience, adventure, and engagement in learning. Thank you, Professor Gora.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rose. Thank you for letting us scrape a little ice off the tippy top of the iceberg of what you've accomplished and what you have to say. And anybody who might be interested in getting more from us, please subscribe to this channel. Every YouTuber does this, but I think it's high time I did it too. Please subscribe to the channel, give the post a like, and leave a comment. And who knows, maybe we'll discuss some of those comments that we get, Dr. Rose, in subsequent um, installments of this ever ongoing conversation. You mentioned lunging forward. Now I want to lunge forward. It's time for me to get something to eat. Have a great day, Rose, and anyone else who's with us at the moment. We'll be back.